And welcome everyone to another exciting adventure and journey on the energy that surrounds us. Thank you all for joining us at an earlier than normal time. So, I am so grateful to have this guest on with me. We've been talking a little bit backstage and we talked a lot offline too before we got started, and so we were both super excited for this episode, and the day has finally come. I feel like I almost want to say like the energy of like disclosure day, where we're going to be talking about so many great topics. And so I am going to turn it over to my amazing guest to introduce herself to all of you. So without further ado, I give you the one, the only experienced author extraordinaire, Karen Holton.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on your show today, Michael. It's a real honor and a privilege to be here. And hi to everybody out there who can make it to the live chat. Well, and the replay, I suppose. And I never really know how to introduce myself, but basically, I am an experiencer. I've had two kinds of ET contact. One is what I call exopolitical ambassador. And in these cases, it happens to me while I'm in my dream state, while I'm asleep at night. And I often find myself aboard what you would consider a mother's ship. It's huge. And I'm actually in a meeting room, and there are many different kinds of beings. And we all kind of sit around a very large circular kind of a table that has a cutout in the center. And we're all there etherically, and we're aware of each other, and we can sort of see each other, but we're not there in any sense physically. And I know that because several times I would wake up in the middle of the night having to go to the washroom, and I was very aware that I was in the middle of a meeting. And then I'd feel really embarrassed because I didn't know if they could see me go into the bathroom or what. Like, it was really unsettling. But then I realized that kind of when I'm here, I'm not there. And when I'm there, I'm not here. I might be here physically, but in essence, my consciousness isn't. And besides, they don't care about things like having to go to the washroom anyway. That's not on their minds. Now, what I do during these meetings is I am able to give them my impression of what it's like to be a human being on earth during these days. All aspects, any aspect of what my life is like. And at first, I kind of thought maybe it's just me, but then it turns out no, no, no. There are millions of us that are having these experiences. But people will wake up in the morning and go, wow, that was a pretty wild dream, or I feel like I'm motivated to take a different direction in my life, but they don't really realize it's a real thing. And we often gaslight ourselves. We're used to being gaslit by all the experts, the doctors, the educators, the politicians. We just get in the habit of gaslighting ourselves. So many people don't take it seriously, don't realize it's a real thing. So the other thing is when I'm having these experiences, I remember having the experience, but I don't remember any specific information that's exchanged from them to me or from me to them. And I believe this is for my own safety, because if I did remember, there might be three-letter agencies knocking on my door, pestering me in ways that I would not appreciate. And this way, if I have nothing to give them, I have nothing to give them. So often memories are suppressed from this type of activity. It's pretty normal. But anyway, so that's one hat that I wear as far as ET contact goes. And the other is an actual experience that I had in 2014 that lasted for 3 months. And I'll get into that. But first, I want to tell you that I have channels on quite a few platforms, including like Odyssey, Telegram, X, Rumble, and of course YouTube. And I pretty much always just go as Karen Holton TV. If you want to look me up, I would love it if you would. Um, and I'm also available on all audio podcasts because I'm part of the Forbidden Knowledge Network with Chris Matthews Network. And if you want to listen to me on audio, it's under the Quantum Guide Show with Karen Holton. So I actually have two podcasts I do. One of them's on Wednesday afternoon, the other one's on Sunday afternoon. And one of them is called the Aliens and Angels podcast, where I talk to all kinds of people that have had ET contact, transdimensional contact, angelic experiences, near death experiences, all that kind of good stuff we do on Sundays. And then on Wednesdays, I host the Quantum Guide Show, where I interview other people who have something that's outside of the box that they're offering to humanity. It might be a different perspective, it might be a specific skill, it might be healing, it might be, psychic abilities, who knows? But whatever it is, sometimes authors, but it's something that will benefit humanity. So basically, what I did is around between 2012 and 2017, I was going through what I consider pretty hardcore awakening process, awakening to a completely different reality than what I was raised believing in. And so when I got myself oriented and I got my footing, I decided that I would start a channel and start hosting podcasts that offer the kind of information I wish I had had back in 2012 or 2014 that wasn't available yet. So that's basically what motivates my show. So that's Karen Holton TV. Um, I'm the author of two books. One is called Transdimensional Meet the New Neighbors, and it's all about my paranormal life and my extensive 3-month ET contact. And I'll tell you about the second book I have out probably later on in the program. And so I finally wrote my book. So I had my experience back in 2014, and it was, I'm trying to think of a nice way of saying this. It was very hard on me psychologically, even though the experience was pleasant. So, how I experienced it is I would go to bed at night and go to sleep, just like any other night. But instead of having the usual kind of dreams I was used to, which are kind of disjointed, symbolic, don't make a lot of sense. Some nights I don't dream at all, or at least that I can remember. Other nights, it's kind of like in a house full of rooms I don't recognize, and or trying to run and I'm not moving anywhere, or going to a public event and here I find out I'm not wearing any clothes, the classic human dream kind of stuff. Well, it wasn't like that. It was an unbelievable experience. And when it first started happening, I would wake up in the morning and think I was dreaming, some kind of new kind of dreaming. I wasn't taking psychedelics or on any kind of drugs or anything like that. I couldn't explain it, but I thought, well, I guess I'm having a shift in consciousness. Maybe I'm just dreaming. But here's the weird part, and I don't expect anybody to just believe me. I'm just telling my story to encourage other people who've had similar experiences so that they can know they're not alone, that we actually do have different kinds of what I would call ET or transdimensional contact. So I would go back to bed at night and boom, I picked up exactly where I left off. It was congruent. It had a storyline. I had adventures and experiences that kind of made sense, although they were, not like my life here on Earth. And so this happened every night for 3 months. I have no idea why I was having them. except that I'm thinking in retrospect, it was so that I would write my book and so that I would be able to offer my piece of the puzzle into the whole disclosure movement when the time was right. And I wanted other people to feel more comfortable. There's another dark side to all of this. On Earth, we have been controlled by a psychiatric industry for a long time. And prior to the mid 1980s, they actually would do brain surgery on people who talked about ET contact. So a lot of people go, well, how come, we haven't had, history of people reporting experiences with extraterrestrials or transdimensionals? Well, I'll tell you, because it wasn't safe. And anybody that's done any research into alternative history will know there was tons of insane asylums. Remember the orphan trains and all that alternative history that we don't necessarily learn about until later when we do deep dives. It was horrible. You could not deviate from a very narrow mainstream narrative that was prescribed for us. Okay. Then in the 1980s, mostly the psychic surgery, which actually still goes on today, along with electroshock therapy, has been replaced with pharmaceuticals. And what this does is shuts down the technology we're naturally born into that allows us to have transdimensional experiences. Now, please, I'm not giving medical advice here. If you're on meds, you've got your own reasons for being on meds. Please do not let me sway you one way or another. That's not my purpose. I'm just speaking my truth, as weird and kind of outside the box as it might be. Anyway, so what would happen to me is for a 3-month period of time, and as abruptly as it started, it stopped after 3 months. But every night I would go to bed, go to sleep, and boom, I'd be aboard the big ship having my amazing experiences with transdimensional and what we would consider extraterrestrial beings. And it was a very positive experience. You see, the beings that I was interacting with are not that far ahead of us. They're not like millions of years more advanced than us. They are at our next stage of development. And so when I brought back my experiences and wrote my book, it's a template on how we could be doing things differently here on Earth to have the kind of life and peace and paradise that is our birthright, being born on this beautiful, beautiful Earth. So, sorry, I'm go down rabbit holes and I don't always come back to my main thought. But basically, it was an amazing experience. It made no sense in the beginning. At first, I thought I was dreaming. But then, after I was having like into my second or third week of these experiences, when I went to bed at night, I picked up exactly where I left off, exactly. And it continued all night long. Um, I want to mention that there's a time dilation. So, wherever I was having these experiences, I could be gone for days, weeks, or even months, and then wake up and it's the very next morning here on Earth. And so it was very confusing for me. So at first I thought I was dreaming, and then I thought I was just plumb crazy. I never heard of anything like this. I never, I'm not much into reading. I haven't read a bunch of science fiction books. I've seen like a few Spielberg movies like E.T. and Close Encounters and stuff like that, and Star Wars, but I had never, had read or knew about experiences that are like what I had. So as I mentioned, these beings are our next stage of development. And what a beautiful goal for us. Because you see, the thing is, we're now coming to an understanding that pretty well everything we've been taught is a lie. Our political systems are phony. Our medical systems are bogus. I could go on and on with conspiracy theories, but that's sort of beyond the scope of this program. Um, but basically, we're looking for something else that we can step off into that can unify us as human beings. And I think that's why my book is so important. And I want to say that these beings look very much like us. There is diversity. There's different skin tones, different heights, different statures, but what they all have that we don't have is a level of health and vitality that I had never seen before. And so I would go about my life and have my experiences. I don't remember absolutely everything, but everything I do clearly recall is in my book. So I found these beings to be what I call the vibe on the love harmonic. Now, here on earth, we don't even know what love is. Love is like people think it's a warm kind of a romantic feeling we have for another human. Well, that's not really what love means. Love is like a basket, and it holds a whole bunch of attributes like patience, self control, being able to have faith in the goodness of other beings, to be good. There's so many virtues that make up the concept of love, and they all need to be practiced at the same time. It's kind of like juggling, and you drop a ball and you pick it up and you go back to learning to juggle again. And the more you practice, the better you get. So these beings were very loving, very patient, very kind. It was an amazing, amazing experience. And I learned a lot from them, especially about our history as human beings here on Earth and a whole bunch of other things. Um, I also have a non-corporeal guide who I call Bob the Gray. He looks like a stereotypical gray, but he's not. His station is kind of higher up, similar to what we would consider to be angels, but he's not part of the spiritual realm. And he helps me to release memories and also has facilitated. One time I requested to go back to the big ship because I really missed everybody so much. And things are so crazy here on Earth. You can't blame me for wanting to go back. And I was able to go back in an astral projection type of format, which I am eternally grateful for. So, the other thing I want to clarify is I believe, based on my own experiences, that remote viewing, astral projection, lucid dreaming, out of body experiences, near death experience, I think all of those are different terms for facets of the same phenomenon. I don't think they're different phenomenon, and they are part of our birthright. We have the technology built right into our brains and our bodies to allow this kind of contact. So I'm pretty excited to tell everybody more about this. And what else? Oh, I was supposed to introduce myself. Well, let me see. I'm an ordinary person. I want you to know that. I'm nobody special. I don't have special skills. I'm not the grand poobah or spokesperson for extraterrestrials, nothing like that. I'm just talking about my experience from my own perspective. And of course, a lot of what I will tell you has been filtered through my own perceptual arena. Okay. We're not given concepts or language to openly talk about this stuff. So some of the concepts I'm describing in words and phrases that I've had to make up. And I try not to use the same words as what other people use because I want to keep my experience unique, as I think it is fairly unique. Although, again, I've been told by the interdimensionals that there are millions of us going through this. Just some don't remember for a reason, usually because people are here for soul evolution. We're here for a human experience. We can't live in these other realms because we're not meant to. This time is meant for us to be here on Earth, learning to love each other, but probably even more importantly, learning to love ourselves. So if we don't know how to love ourselves, how are we supposed to love other people? So, I don't mean to be an old lady wagging my finger at you guys. I'm just very passionate about the things that I have learned. Um, the other thing is, I know that I was aboard some kind of a craft. It was massive. Millions of beings live on board this amazing craft. And it's not a vehicle, it's actually a living organism of itself with full consciousness. And everything that we do, all our goings on aboard the big ship, is all done through telepathy. Of course, when I first got there, I didn't know how to do telepathy. I had to learn how, and it took me quite a bit of time. So remember, it was only nighttime while asleep for 3 months of our Earth time. But I was gone having experiences for weeks, even months, which allowed for a lot of training and experiences and amazing things to happen for me and with me. So the big ship, it's not like a Star Trek or a Star Wars experience, not at all. You know, on those shows, you've got all these people sitting at desks with all these screens, and they're constantly remodulating and pushing buttons. And no, it was nothing like that. In fact, there are engineers, but the engineers interface directly with the big ship through telepathy. Telepathy is the transdimensional, extraterrestrial, universal language. And I'm just going to check in with you, Michael, if there's anything you want clarification on before I get into what telepathy is.
Well, actually, I think that's where I was headed because I was going to ask, you know, did all of this happen over time with experiences as a child, progressively getting more active, or did it just one day you woke up and you're like, "Oh, I can do this now."
Well, it's more like waking up and going, what the hell just happened? You know, it really affected me psychologically because I tried to talk to people about what I was going through, and people just thought I was a nutcase. And, you know, I didn't need that on top of trying to come to terms with what I was experiencing, right? So I actually stayed away from people. I couldn't relate to them. Plus, it was such a disappointment to deal with a lot of humans after being in this other very loving, amazing experience. Now, I've had weird paranormal experiences all my life. I write about them in my book as well. Um, and I don't think that this particular experience is necessarily related to any of the other experiences. So I just as a small child, I started having weird experiences. I would try telling my family about it. I'll just give you an example. When I was like about 4 years old, my older brother locked me in a closet and I wanted to get out. And because my two other brothers were playing and I wanted to play too. And so I was like banging on the door, let me out, let me out. They didn't want to let me out. They thought it was hilarious. I wasn't terribly afraid, but I wanted to see what they were doing. And as soon as I had that desire to see what they were doing, I could see what they were doing. It was in my mind's eye, but I could see them very, very clearly. And of course, experiences like that, I would tell my family, and my mother would freak right out. She'd say, "Don't talk like that. People are going to think you're crazy. We don't want to get labeled as the crazy family on the block. You know, it might interfere with your father's business." And oh my God, all that other caring about what the neighbors think stuff, right? And so here I was being told that if I told people, they would think I was crazy. Maybe I was crazy, which I was not. I started going to different churches because I was searching for answers and nobody was talking about this stuff. And I would ask the pastor, the minister, the priest, you know, try to find out. And then I was told, oh my God, you don't want to do that. That's dealing directly with the devil. You're letting yourself open for demons. It's going to ruin your life. Oh my God, Lordy, Lordy, the sky is falling. And I went, great. You know, even as a young child, like 6 or 7 years old, I'm going, okay, so I have my choice between telling people and them thinking I'm crazy, or me telling people and them thinking I'm evil. Like I couldn't win. And so I felt very, very alone in my experiences. But I had some wonderful things happen. I was very afraid of the dark. I knew that there were beings that surround all of us in time and space that we can't see and we can't hear. Our range of vision, the light spectrum is very, very narrow. Our cats and dogs can see more than we can see. Same with hearing, same with taste, same with touch. So there's a whole lot going on that we're completely oblivious to, but I knew it was there and that it was real, but I didn't understand what it was about. I had no one to talk to about it. So I was very, very scared at night. And so I used to hide under the covers and I could barely even breathe. And it was a really horrible situation for me. One night, this creature appeared to me, and I don't know if it appeared physically or in my mind's eye. I don't know, but it was very, very real. And it looked like a griffin. It had the head and the wings of an eagle, but the body of a lion, except that it wasn't 3D. It was all made up of flames and fire. It was just such a grand, beautiful, beautiful creature. And it let me know that I had nothing to worry about, that it was my guardian, and that anytime I got scared, all I had to do was think of it, call it out in my mind or out loud, depending. I'm looking for a picture of it in my book right here. I have some pictures in my book too. Makes it interesting for the reader. I don't know if you can see, there's me with my griffin, my beautiful griffin. So it protected me, and I didn't have to be afraid of the dark or at night anymore after that. And eventually I just stopped calling on it because it didn't need it anymore. So I just had all these weird experiences. I'm going to give you one more that happened to me when I was actually an adult. I was at a place called Stodom Falls on Vancouver Island. I live in Canada. And there were these shallow rapids with big flat rocks dotting along the riverbed. And people would go down there and suntan or just soak in the water or catch fish or whatever. And I was lying on a rock and I looked up and I saw this eagle, kind of going around and around like they do, very leisurely. And I just had the desire. I think that is what gives me my experiences. Having that childlike wonder and desire seems to be all that I need to have these experiences. Anyway, I had the desire to see things from the eagle's perspective. And within a flash, I was looking down. I could see myself lying on the rock way down below me. I could see the rapids and the river, and I could see the little island in the middle there. I could see the forest, the trees, the logging roads. I could see everything. It was just so incredible. Didn't last long, like a second or two or three, and boom, then I was back in my body again. And I went, holy smokes, was that ever fun? I would like to do that again. So I had all those kind of experiences that don't seem to be related to this contact I had with the transdimensionals. So it was after I had the experience and I was trying to sort out what happened, this ET or transdimensional experience, trying to sort it out and figure out what happened. And so I just wanted to know, where is the big ship? Is it in our solar system? Is it in our galaxy? Is it in our star quadrant? Like where exactly is this big ship? I was trying to make sense of it. And then I got like an instant download. I knew exactly where it was. Okay, so bear with me. I'm going to explain it the way I have to explain it so y'all can get a visual in your mind's eye and perceive of where the big ship was. So the ship sits in an interdimensional envelope. So let me explain that. Most of you are familiar with a Venn diagram. A Venn diagram is where you have things that don't seem to be related, but they overlap in a small area that gives them that common perception of reality. So if you can imagine in your mind a huge daisy, a flower, a daisy. And you know how it has a whole bunch of petals that go around the outside of the center, white petals, and it's yellow in the center. Okay, imagine that each of those petals represents a different dimensional reality, a different place in the basically time space continuum, a different timeline, a different position within the multiverse, the spiritual realms, and all kinds of other realms that I wouldn't even know about or couldn't think of in a million years. And they all overlap at the center, and that's interdimensional space. And there's lots of that kind of space in space. You know, we're usually told it's dark matter, it's dark energy. No, no, it's not. There's these interdimensional envelopes, and that's where the big ship sits. And the reason for that is so that beings from many different realities can come and go, serve purposes, have training. The big ship itself is basically a first contact point where beings come to learn telepathy if they're from a speaking world, or learn physicality. There's several ways that we could have physicality while on board the big ship. So let me now skirt over to the whole telepathy thing. So a lot of people think telepathy, if we were in the presence of someone who is telepathic, they could just read our minds. No, it doesn't work like that at all. It's like a completely separate language. So what happens, it's not made up of words. It's made up of short, like video clips that run in your mind's eye, overlays where what you're seeing is overlaid on top of what your physical eyes are seeing. It's kind of like seeing imagination and physically all at the same time. It can be sensations, body sensations, symbols. It's a whole lot of different sensations that we learn to read as a language. So we actually have to learn to read it and identify it and see it for what it is. And humans have the technology to be able to do this. We all do. So when I was aboard the big ship, of course, it was very quiet, very orderly, very wonderful environment. But in the beginning, I was kind of broadcasting way too much information. You see, there are certain protocols they have aboard the big ship that ensure the safety and comfort of all the beings. So we have to learn, part of learning telepathy is to learn a term that I call shielding. And what shielding is keeping your private feelings and thoughts and emotions to yourself. You don't want to just be broadcasting all your dirty laundry all over the place. We all know people like that, and they're a little bit uncomfortable to be around. Same thing was true about the big ship. So I had to learn telepathy, and the way I learned to do that is my buddy, who I haven't talked about yet. You're assigned a buddy when you're aboard the big ship, and that person stays with you 24/7, sleeps beside you, everything, until you feel totally oriented to what's going to happen, and where to get food and how to do different things and what your purpose is for being there and all that kind of stuff. You get a buddy. So my buddy gave me a device, and it looked a little bit just like a child's headband, but you put it around the back of your skull, and there's two little nubs that rest on your temples. What that does is it boosts the signal so that we're able to communicate directly with the big ship. And as I mentioned, the big ship is a living thing, and it is also the instructor, the trainer, all that kind of cool stuff too. So I put that on, and the even though it's using my imagination and I'm not anywhere physically, it feels real. It feels like you're actually going through the experience. So there's 4 different levels to telepathy. I get into all of that in my book to explain it in great detail. The first level is where I was given the image of a simple shape, like a circle or a square or a triangle. And the goal was to hold that in my imagination, in my mind's eye, for 3 seconds, then with practice 6 seconds, and then with practice 9 seconds. And when I did it correctly, I would get like a dopamine hit. I can't explain it. It would be like a warm, fuzzy, affectionate, loving feeling that kind of gave me a reward system every time I did it right, which really helped facilitate my learning. Um, and then and then there's a second half to the lesson. So after I was tired of doing that or had done that or achieved certain goals, then I had in my mind's eye the experience of being in a small room with about 10 or 11 or 9 other beings. And oh, hi, Denise. Sorry, I have to say hi to Denise. Mm. Um, and and oh, now I have to remember where I was. Sorry. Uh, oh yeah. So after I would do that, then it would be like being in a room with these other beings. Then I would practice sharing those shapes with one or two beings, but not the rest, or to keep them completely quiet to myself. And every time it would leak out, for lack of a better word, and they were all perceiving it, they would raise their hand and smile. So I would know, okay, I have to work more on that, right? So that's the first level. Second level is more complex shapes. Now it's things like pyramids and spheres and moving and different colors, and it would become more complex, but it was always the same. The second half of the lesson is I would perceive myself as being in this room, and I would try to not share what I was thinking, feeling, but it would leak out. That was the hardest part. The hardest part of learning telepathy was to do the shielding. And also, I had trouble directing my intention or communication to just a couple people amongst a group of people. That was also really challenging. So basically, it's like learning how far to project it, when to keep it quiet to yourself. What's really amazing about these interdimensional beings is a lot of them are born and live their whole lives aboard these big ships. They got jobs, they got things to do, training, they have families, and they're very good at shielding their children. So because there's people and beings coming and going, they are extremely protective of their children. And so all the children, the parents will shield them so they're not picking up anything from anybody until they're old enough to be taught how to handle it properly. So that's telepathy. In its more advanced stages, of course, I learned how to keep my thoughts to myself, how to share with just a few people, or how to share with the group, but also when it's appropriate to infuse emotion and body sensation and when it's not. And so once I got pretty good at that, and it took a long time, it really took a long time to learn that. I don't know how long, because time is a slippery slope when you're talking about, you know, a time dilation situation. But eventually I learned how, and then I was able to expand my social network. I was able to train for work and learning and all kinds of things that really took off from that point. But before that, I was struggling with it. But I practiced every day. And I think the other part that the folks would want to know is, was I there etherically or physically? Now, the truth of the truth is, I don't know, but I'll tell you what the experience felt like. In the beginning, it felt like I was there as me, absolutely as me, because we had to do a walkthrough of some kind of a scanning technology that recorded our DNA, our psychology, our learning styles, everything about us, even past life residue. Everything was collected for a purpose when we first got there. Then we were assigned our buddies, and then we were given our quarters, and then I was shown around the area, a basic area around the big ship where I spent most of my time, introduced to other beings, all that kind of cool stuff. Um, but then I tried a couple other methods, and I was about them. I'll give you an example. At one point, I did a consciousness swap with another being who was already aboard the big ship. So their consciousness was in my body, and my consciousness was in their body. And it works for very short periods of time, but we tried it. I wasn't 100% comfortable with it, and it didn't last very long. But it was funny because after that experience, I ran into a good friend of mine and at the grocery store, and he says to me, Karen, where were you? I was so worried about you. I was calling you. I was knocking on your door. You didn't answer. I thought something happened to you. Well, I couldn't tell him that I had done a consciousness swap with another being on board a living uh, big ship or mother ship parked in interdimensional space. You just can't run around telling people stuff like that. So I just thought quick in my mind, I thought, okay, I said, oh, I got depressed for a couple of days. I'm real sorry about that, but I'm feeling a lot better now. And he was okay with that. And that's how that went. It was really trippy. Um, Another experience I had, it was with kind of a container suit, just going to use that term. Um, they have these, what I call one size fits all clones. And the bodies look very much like what we would consider a stereotypical gray. It's almost kind of embryonic in the way the body looks. The ears are not well formed, the nose and mouth are not well formed. When you're using one, excuse me, when you're using one, you don't eat, you don't sleep, you don't poop, you don't do anything. So those systems are not necessary. And I don't know whether they were biologic, synthetic, clones. I have no idea how they were made. And I don't know what they did with them after we were finished using them. It just kind of creeped me out, and I didn't want to know. I just didn't want to know. Anyway, so I did try that, and it was a really disturbing experience for me. So here I am aboard the big ship in one of these, what I call one size fits all. They're basically identical, but our mannerisms, our posture, different things about our personality show through, so you can tell beings apart. But I went and looked at myself in the mirror, and it really shook me to my core. And it took me time to understand why. Well, first of all, it was a bit startling. And but it shook me to my core because we as human beings tell ourselves lies. We tell ourselves lies about the way we look, about what makes us special. We do those things for our psychology so that, our ego can protect us here on earth because of the way societies are formed here on earth. When you're in a clone body and you're looking at yourself in a clone body, you don't have any of those lies are not supported. You can't look at yourself and go, oh, I have such cute eyes, or oh, I've lost a little weight, I feel so good about that, or whatever we tell ourselves to make ourselves more comfortable in our own skin. All of that was gone in an instant. And I was shocked because, well, for one thing, it made me really realize that who we are is what's on the inside, what makes us humans, or what we consider human, or it might be a different kind of being. Um, and I felt really uncomfortable, really, really did not like it at all. After that, whenever I went aboard the big ship, I was physically identical to the way I am here on Earth, but I had no imperfections. So, my crooked nose was straight. I didn't have arthritis in my feet. My eyesight was perfect. There was no need for glasses. I felt absolutely fantastic while I was there. And so I suspect, and I don't know for a fact, but I suspect that I had an identical clone body. Remember when I went through that walkthrough and they got all that information? I think they actually created me a new body that I could use while I was there for my comfort and to give me the physicality that I needed. Well, I'm going to just stop in case you got any questions, Michael, and because I could just talk forever.
Well, I do have a couple questions, but I also have an observation that I picked up from your experiences, that you shared growing up and as an adult before all this happened, when you were like, oh, these aren't, you don't see they're related. And I kind of can see a way that they are actually,
Oh,
because seeing through other people's eyes as a kid or seeing through your third eye, and then all of a suddenly, all these other aspects, they're being utilized in your interdimensional ambassadorship, so to speak. So to me, it's like all these things were done to show you so that when it happened, you would be less afraid of going, wait, how am I seeing, through this other body that's not my body? How am I doing this? How am I here? It's you kind of did it a little bit and it didn't look the same, but it was enough to where your mind was able to go, yes, we can do this. Okay, yes, this is possible. Okay, so that's just an observation I wanted to share with you. You can think about it.
no, I
And
think you might have hit the nail right on the head because when I was aboard the big ship from the very beginning till the end, I was not afraid at all. It was just another one of my amazing weird experiences, it was just that's my life. My life was just like that. So I think you might be quite right. And the other thing is I have other spiritual gifts. I'm often very psychic. I have a lot of retro causality, which is really weird. And I have a lot of precognitive awareness, all kinds of stuff. But I don't call myself a psychic because, and I don't really talk much about it because it's not controlled by me. It seems to be controlled by spirit. And I don't have, it's not like something I can turn on or turn off like a tap. It just happens when it happens, and the best outcome is just what happens from it, if that
right,
makes sense.
it does. And one thing I wanted to ask about, and I appreciate your in depth about it, is the telepathy school and everything, because we all think, oh, these beings are telepathic, and we see like Star Trek where the telepaths are like they're reading everything, and it's like, oh yeah, you got to be careful, because they're coming on board, and you're going to be exposed, and like if you're thinking something, the telepaths react to it on the show, and so you're thinking, oh boy, you know the way we think going galactic is probably they're going to be like, how is this person in this chamber with what they're thinking right now? And so thank you for sharing that about the shielding and how they don't, read everything, and that they just read what they need to read. And so that to me gave me a little bit of comfort with the communicating telepathic, because it's like, oh yeah, not quite sure, so thank you for that. And I'm also curious because we're talking about the time factor, and I like how you say time dilation, because I always talk about how time is different over there. So do you feel like, do you notice when you're over there and spending, what feels like hours or days or weeks, like you put it, and you come back and it's like maybe a few minutes, does your body like feel extra tired, or do you have an impact to yourself with your body energy levels or anything where you're like excessively tired and you're like,
Yeah.
why am I excessively tired?
Yep, I do. So I want to just clarify, this happened to me back in 2014 during a 3-month period. It ended as abruptly as it started. I have been back once etherically through the assistance of my friend. I call him Bob the Gray. They don't care what you call them. I mean, they're not like that. He's just happy that I can sense him and communicate with him. Now I do the exopolitical work, which is while I'm asleep. That's etheric. But this physical experience, being aboard the big ship, having to learn telepathy, making friends, fitting into the community, that only just happened that one time and has not happened since. Now, I don't know if it'll happen again, but it's not something that happens all the time. But every morning I was exhausted, absolutely exhausted. I would walk around with a cup of tea, just wondering what the hell just happened. Like it was a lot. So you can imagine if you have one day's experience, say you go to the park with friends and you fly kites, just as an example, you can process that experience through memory over the next couple of days or even weeks. You might reflect back on it from time to time, wonder how your friend is doing, whatever. I didn't have that luxury. I'd be gone for weeks or even months, wake up, it's the very next day, and somehow try to process all those experiences, all that time within a single day, which is impossible. And then I'd be back experiencing more. So it was very hard on me psychologically. People who claim, and maybe they're absolutely telling the truth, that they go with beings and they're on starships and they do adventures or whatever, and then they don't talk about what that did to them when they were in conscious space here on Earth again. It's very, very difficult, and that's why I think it only lasted for 3 months, because there's a limit to what the human body, brain, subconscious can handle. And by then I was full. And it took me 3 years to unpack it. So it wasn't until 2017 that I made enough sense of it, not all of it, but enough sense of it that I was able to start talking about it. And that's when my guides told me it's time to come out of the closet and share your story, Karen. People need to hear what you have to say.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I appreciate the fact you're into like the exopolitics because that seems to be a new term, and a few people, are famous for talking about it online and, making it, more public. But I'm curious, when you were tapped to do this work, did they ask and you agree to do this, or was it just something you were called to do? And next thing you know, oh, I'm in the exopolitics field and this is what's going on. And also, I'm curious with everything that is going on right now, where do you see the exopolitics going?
Okay. So first of all, the first part of your question is, I believe I agreed to it on some level, all of it, or it wouldn't have happened. These are not people or beings that want to just steal you and force you into their environment. So I think I agreed to it on some level. And as I mentioned before, I don't have all my memories, but what I do remember, I've written in my book in as much detail as I could muster. But as far as what's going on Earth today, it's a travesty. Now, these beings, and you can imagine beings like us that have the kind of politics, religion, healthcare, everything we do here on Earth, wow, it's really holding us back. Can you imagine if we put all that money, all that time, all that energy, all that talent into building a beautiful world that had enough of everything for everybody? It'd be a whole different kettle of fish. But it's a big mess down here. It's extremely stressful. Now, most ETs are ahead of us, either at our next stage of development or way further than that. They are not going to want to be um, in this big mess with us. I mean, we're like pigs trying to put on lipstick and we're wallowing in the mud. It's horrible. They are not going to want to spend time here. In fact, most beings are so empathetic and compassionate and so far removed from the kind of shenanigans that are going on Earth, they couldn't handle it psychologically. It would be extremely disturbing for them. So, the first thing I want to say is ET is not coming to rescue us because they know we have to reach out and rescue ourselves. And we know how we can do this. We have everything we need, but we need to step outside of what I call the matrix or the construct or the zeitgeist, however you look at it. We have to put our foot down as a whole Earth population and say, this is bullshit and we're not doing it anymore. You have no more power over us. And I think that's a bit subversive, and I'm taking a risk saying that, but that's my truth. So, no, ET's not going to all come and rescue us. There are some groups, I'm not really familiar with the groups you hear so much about, like the reptilians and the grays that come to Earth and the grays that are um, crypto creatures that have been here that look like the grays, but they've been living here for maybe thousands of years, maybe even longer than humans, or Sasquatch or Dogman or whatever. I only know my own experience, which was with these particular beings aboard what I call the big ship. So I can't speak as any kind of an expert, but I do believe we're being observed and we're being watched. And I also believe we're being protected against perhaps other forces, I don't know what to call them, entities that might be nefarious, that might be adding to the problems we're facing here on Earth. So basically, long story short, what we got to do is saying, I am not going to hate that person over there because of the color of their skin, because of their religion, because of where they live, because of how much money they have. No, we have to embrace each other in true love. But before we even do that, we have to learn what love is, and we have to learn how to love ourselves. And so I get into that quite a bit in my book as well. And so, and it's not like I'm some kind of super virtuous person. I'm not, but I'm very sincere and I work very hard at being a good person, being patient with myself. Like, even one of the virtues that's a part of love is to be able to take care of our bodies. Well, a lot of people don't do that. Addictions are rampant, all kinds of addictions. That includes food like substances. You know, we got to feed our bodies properly, get fresh air, sunshine, all the things that we need as a living organism to be as healthy and as vibrant as we can. And that nurtures the technologies that are a part of us, our light body, our pineal gland. We've got the technology for interdimensional travel. Portals are created within our own minds, and collectively we can come together, create portals for all kinds of travel into different dimensional realities and frequencies that are absolutely amazing. And there's, you know, if you do the research, you'll find there's Monroe Institute, and there's all kinds of people out there that are doing yeah, we're technology that are doing this kind of work. So we have to collectively be so sick and tired of being sick and tired that we're willing to put in the effort to change who we are. So we literally have to become the change we want to see in the world. And it has to start right now. And it's a big job. So I work very hard on that every single day. I'm very sincere in wanting to make a difference because I just don't think things can go on much longer the way they are. And besides, guys, it's bullshit. It's bullshit. The powers that be only have that power because we give it to them. So let's take it back, fix ourselves, fix our families, then fix our communities, then fix our countries, and then fix our world. And we can do that.
I agree, and I love how the synchronicity of being in the metaphysical community, I always would hear growing up, be the change, you want to be. You're the one who can, only you can make the change to your environment, which ripples out to others. And so I always find it synchronistic, and it kind of makes me smile a little bit when I hear other people are using that same verbiage now. And I'm like, yes, because that's the language we need to be bringing back into this world is if you don't like something, then change it. It's not the world of, oh, I don't like this, but it's the way it is, and I just have to make do anymore, because that's where we were, and that's not where we are. And so I'm glad to hear, verbiage is starting to change. And that's, to me, is like almost like the major first step is changing how we talk changes how we're thinking. And
Yeah,
so it's also changing what we're putting out there.
absolutely. Words are spells. That's why it's called spelling. And the words that we use, also the intention behind them. So, a lot of us will think not very kind thoughts about another person. Maybe someone was short with us or didn't treat us the way we want to be treated, and we get mad at them. And then we make up all this story, a backstory about how bad they are, so we cannot like them and not have anything to do with them. Well, that just perpetuates more of the same. It's really a big job to try to embrace everyone in love. Now, I want to mention something else that was brought up to me recently where somebody was saying, but Karen, it's not safe to love everybody. There's some really bad people out there doing really horrible things. And there's like narcissism and there's all kinds of stuff, right? Well, part of self love is taking good care of ourselves, recognizing things that aren't going well for us. A lot of that is body sensation, being in touch with body sensation. Of course, if our body is broken down and been abused by the medical industry and a bunch of other things, it might not be so easy to connect with the body, but the body always tells the truth. The body will tell you when someone's not good for you, when someone is good for you. You don't have to figure it out in your mind. And so we need to take really good care and protect ourselves. We're worth it. We're absolutely worth it. So basically, it all boils down to everything that we experience will give us the yes feeling or the no feeling. You just ask yourself, is this giving me the yes feeling? Maybe we want to try something new we haven't done before and we're scared to, and we're not sure if it's a good thing or a bad thing. Ask yourself, is it something you want? If it's something you really want, or if your inner child really wants it, right? That's different. Then go for it. But if you get the no feeling, honor it. Honor it. Your body will tell you the truth. It's a beautiful, beautiful instrument. It's just being degraded and abused and brainwashed and dragged over the coals and burnt out from the 9 to 5 slave system. We're not doing very well. And so, I used to get mad at my guides and say, why is all these horrible things happening? It's got to stop. It has to stop right now. And they'd say, Karen, it's the only way to wake people up. When they've had enough, they'll wake up and they'll put their foot down. And that's basically the situation we're in today. And hopefully, there's time for us to fix things. And I think the whole political, religious, medical, and on, there's the military industrial complex. I could go on and on and on. Pretty well every facet of our reality has been taken over. Well, that will start to shift and will demand better for ourselves and for those that we love. It's time.
I agree. And one thing I'll point out and piggyback on is, as we're talking about, how do you love the quote evil people or the dark people doing things? There's something that I've learned through my experiences growing up and following the path that I was on is I can love someone, and what they do with that love is totally up to them.
Yeah.
But also there is the fact of I have had, interactions with so-called narcissists and those type of personalities. And so what I do is I simply look at it as, okay, I'm going to love you as you are, and I can love you from afar. And
Mm-hmm.
that does not mean you have permission or the ability to be in my space, but it also doesn't mean I hate you for what you are. It's I
Mm-hmm.
surround you in love, but you're over there doing your thing. I'm over here doing my thing. And that's, to me is the best way to be is it's like I'm still coming from the place of love, but I'm not being the doormat and not,
Yep.
giving my power away. It's I view it as more standing in my power than before. And so that's just another option, of if people are, really, looking at that, there are different, ways of looking at. We're no longer confined by the adage that we had growing up of you have to love everybody, or you have to, if family is treating you wrong, you have to keep them in your life because they're family. You just have to forgive them for
Nope.
that. It's like, no, we're not in that world anymore. And I, I have family members I don't really talk with, and people ask me a lot of times, "Oh, how do you handle that?" I'm like, I've gotten so used to it because it's been so long that I view the family as acquaintance, and my real family are the people that are there every day. They're there when I need them, and they're there by choice, not because they
Mm-hmm.
have to be. And
Mm-hmm.
so I just thought I'd offer that, as we're
Oh,
talking about.
it's very good what you just said. And, it's like they can do them and I'll do me, and that's okay. I don't need, you don't owe anybody anything. But, we can also apply that to the systems that are around us, because the systems that are around us are also narcissistic, and they're run by narcissistic people. But, one thing my guides revealed to me that helped me a lot, and that was the understanding. Like, you take one person who you might have bad feelings against, like maybe a president, or maybe a banker, or one of these, what they call the elites. They're not elites, they're actually the parasite class, because everything they have, they've stolen from us. They can't have anything if it isn't them taking it from us. We're the ones with the power. But when you look at their life, if you were born into their situation with their genetics, their upbringing, their programming, you might do the same thing. We're all capable of wonderful things, and we're all capable of horrible things. We saw that during World War II. We see that during every war. There are people that go over and they fight because they have to, but there are people that do some really disgusting, disturbing shit under the cover of war. A lot of these powerful families, what they do to their children, you can't even imagine. And so it's basically they're all MK Ultra. They're all broken, and their beautiful, innocent, balanced self is not available. So I'm not saying feel sorry for them and let them do what they do. No, I'm not saying that either. We all have to take responsibility. Kathy O'Brien is a wonderful example of someone who is MK Ultra, and she turned her life around and she's helping others. Same with Catherine Austin Fitz. Brilliant, brilliant woman who understands the monetary system in ways I never will. Same thing. So many of them were MK Ultra. So, we need to have compassion for everybody, but we're not going to put up with their BS, and we're not going to let them control our life. And yeah, I mean, I'm not fond of most of them, not at all. But at the same time, they have to wake up too. It was funny. I was saying to my guides, there are some really horrible people. A lot of us come from families that were horrible, absolutely horrible, disturbing shit that should never happen to any child, anytime, anywhere, right? And I thought, I asked my guides, I said, how are you going to deal with them? Even if they die, they need to be dealt with. They've done horrible things. They've caused harm in ways that we can't even imagine, widespread intergenerational trauma. Do they just get away with it because they died? And my guide said, well, what do you think we should do, Karen? Do you think we should punish them? I said, no, I don't think punishment actually works. And they said, what works? And I said, well, what's helped me to change, it's going to make me cry. What helped me to change was to see things from the other person's perspective. So maybe I treated someone the way I shouldn't have. Maybe I made a big mistake raising my children. Maybe I could have been kinder to my mother. Whatever, whatever. I mean, we all got a laundry list, right, of imperfections and things we haven't done. But when we see it from the other's perspective, what they went through, it tears your heart out and it really helps you to shift to being a gentler, kinder, more loving person. So I believe that all these people that are doing horrible things, they will have to see or experience it from the perspective of those they hurt. And oh my God, that is going to be more than punishment enough, but it's also going to straighten them out so that maybe their next go round at reality will be better. I don't know. But that's what my guide showed me, and it helped me to cope with it. I don't like it. I don't agree with it. I don't even want to think about it. But everybody has to face that. And then that ties into shadow work that we all need to do. And it's better to do your shadow work while you're alive than wait until you kick the bucket, in my opinion.
I agree. And one thing I will share with you to kind of validate kind of what your guides were saying to you is I grew up with the perception of, death. And one of the aspects of death was you go in a life review. And in this
Yes.
life review, you see every situation you lived, but you also see it through every person that was, sorry, every person that was involved in that situation. So if, you were bullied, you're going to see, yourself getting bullied, but then you're going to see what the person who did the bullying was seeing and how what they were feeling, and vice versa. If you did harm to someone, you're going to see and feel that harm that you did to them. So there is no real, in my opinion, escape from it.
Mm-hmm.
And what I do is when see, somebody, that's doing something I feel is wrong and it looks like they're escaping justice, I go, "Oh, just wait. You may be escaping earthly justice, but the divine justice is going to catch up. And you're not going to
Oh,
be
yeah.
able to walk, and get a fancy lawyer and get out of that one. The divine justice, there is no escape. You face it no matter what." And the beauty though of it too though is, as much as we're talking about all the bad things, that we're seeing, you also get to feel all the good things from your perspective and their perspective. So, those days where you gave somebody, say, a quarter so they could go get a drink somewhere in the old days when, that was possible. You get to see and feel what that actually did and how that impacted them. And so to me, that's the beauty of the whole system is yes, we get to see the impacts. We get to feel the impacts and know it from all sides. And so that's where now I live the kind of life path of I don't judge anyone for what they do to me or others. I just sit back and go, just wait for your own judgment and of yourself. And I do the same thing. I will think real long and hard before I say or do something because I'm like, oh, I don't want to, face this if it goes south on the other side. So let me make sure this is going to come out right. Let me make sure that my intention's going to be heard. And when it doesn't, I do my best to correct it in the moment so
Mhm.
that I don't have to experience that. And so I think that's something, if people are concerned about, how do I handle these people, is look at it from the perspective of when I go to look at life over again, how do I want to see it? And then you'll find, I think, a more divine answer of, you know, do I need to smack this person down for what they did and teach them a lesson? Maybe. So,
Mhm.
if that's what it's going to take, then okay. But if not, then don't.
A really good starting point. I had somebody on my show on Sunday, on the Aliens and Angels podcast, and she confessed to the audience that she had trouble with addictions, but she did a 12-step program and it really helped her to do her shadow work. And I myself have also done 12-step programs, mostly for alcohol, but it helps you. You have to right your wrongs. You have to apologize for the things you've done wrong, and you have to do an honest appraisal of yourself, and many of us want to stay too distracted and too busy to do that. It's not fun. It's the really icky part of being alive. But, from someone like myself, I'm 70 years old. I don't know how long I'm going to be around, probably a while longer, but I'm just saying, you start thinking about the end of your life is getting closer and closer. Do I want to be on my deathbed and have to deal with all that shit last minute? Not me. I want to get as much of that dealt with now. But see, this is another thing that's really cool about being older that a lot of you won't find out until you're older is you can look at your life. You can see what went wrong. You can see what went right. You can see how you could have done things differently. And you can course correct in the now and guarantee that your tomorrow will be better. Can you imagine? That's like having a magic wand, guys. It's really cool to be able to do that. And so getting older, it's definitely a time for to be able to think about things and think things through and start doing things differently. And if you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, time to step out and to take a walk on the wild side and start experimenting with your life and doing things differently. And it's okay to make mistakes. We all make mistakes. That's how I learn. I make a ton of mistakes. You guys have no idea. You'd laugh if you had any idea how many mistakes I make. But I learn, and I think that's the important part. And then I try to share the best part of me and what I know with audiences because it's a way of giving a gift, I guess, without necessarily being rich to buy everybody everything. I can just give you of myself.
Right. And it kind of, to me, goes to the idea of the only stupid question we're told is the one you never ask.
Yeah.
And in life, I take it a step further and go, the only mistakes in life that are truly the mistakes are the ones we don't learn from. And I did a talk recently in March at a conference about the power and the mythos of the hero's journey.
Yes.
And one of the things that I brought up into it was the shadow work. And I was like, this is like the integral middle part of the hero's journey. So there is no way you can ever, go, I'm not going to do my shadow work because your everyday life is filled with shadow work. You just don't realize it because you don't see it as that way. But to me, I started, after I was looking at this talk that I was doing, the way that I was perceiving everything is I was like, well, we're told like to see a shadow is to see something dark, that there's something nefarious there. That's why it's in the shadow. And I started to think about that, and I was like, no, because if the shadow was a dark being, it would disappear in the darkness. We wouldn't see it. There is light that's making it a shadow emulating from itself. So therefore, this is like a balance of both the light and the dark, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what it is for us. And so I started looking at shadow work then and going, wait a minute. We dread like dark nights of the souls, as some people call them, and doing shadow work. But then it's like, wait a minute, look at the other side of it. Look at the changes that are made and look at the progress and all the little wins that we get along the way and how the journey changes and how you change just by doing a simple little act of looking at something. And I go, wow, shadow work is not so bad actually. And it's almost like, I don't want to sound corny, but it's almost like I get excited if I get a chance to do shadow work or dark night because I'm like, ooh, what's the change going to be on the other side? Yes,
Mm-hmm.
there's going to be a lot of hard work in the middle, but and again, the hard work, as I was taught in metaphysics, is, it's as hard as you make it. So there's that aspect too. If you don't
Mm-hmm.
want to change and you're going to fight it, yeah, it's going to be more daunting. But if you go with the flow and you learn from it, it can be a little bit more smooth and maybe not so tumultuous and going, hey, this ain't so bad. Yeah, let's do it
Mm-hmm.
again. Let's try something else.
Yep. Yep. The hero's journey for sure. That's what it is. And you come out in a whole new place and then you kind of do it again and again and again. And you're just always improving, and I think along the way, maybe we have more spiritual experiences that really encourage us. There's synchronicities galore, everything from looking at the clock and it's 1 1 1 1, or somebody says something and you just heard it somewhere else and you go, okay, I'm supposed to pay attention to this. Yeah, there's so much, and it can be very rewarding. It's not always fun and easy, but it's definitely rewarding. I'm wondering, Michael, because we're coming close to the end of the show, can I just talk a little bit about my books?
I was just about to. You're reading my mind. And I was about to say, oh, we're coming close to the end of the show. Do you want to promote your book? So
I do. I so as I mentioned, I have this book called Transdimensional Meet the New Neighbors. It covers my take on reality, some of the things that are holding us back, my paranormal experiences, and then everything that I remember from my time aboard the big ship with these transdimensional beings. And by the way, we are also transdimensional, but there's a lot we did not cover that I think that the audience would find really interesting. My second book, which I didn't even expect to publish, by the way, these are author copies, so when you buy the book, it won't have the strip across it. So this is the second book. So I just finished publishing Transdimensional Meet the New Neighbors. And I went, whew, I'm so glad that's done. Boy, that was a lot of work. It's going to be a long time before I write another book. Boom. As soon as I thought that, I started having this overwhelming urge to work with a really old AI system, like it's like 3 or 4 years old AI system that generates images. And I did not realize, somehow, I cannot even explain this, but somehow I started creating with AI. AI, of course, did the artwork. Images of what the different kinds of gray beings there are. So I want to just tell everybody the Greys are not one particular race of beings from one particular planet. Greys can be um, um, created technologies that don't have a soul. They can be beings that actually do come from different star quadrants or places within the universe. They can be cryptoterrestrials that have been here for many thousands of years. The only thing they have in common is that their skin does not have the pigment to reflect light in our visible spectrum of the color spectrum, and so they appear to be kind of gray. Some appear to be a bit creamy colored, but basically they're all gray. A lot of them have the larger eyes. Most of them wear it's like a contact lens that's black because their eyes are very sensitive to the light. Anyway, I started creating these images and I didn't know why, but I was just compelled to do it. So I did it and I created all these images. And then I thought, well, how am I supposed to write a book about the Greys when I don't really know that much about them? That's a little bit outside of my realm of experience. So I asked 7 of my friends who have a lot of contact, like, for instance, Philip and Ronald Kinsella, Preston Dennett, Dolly Safran, Elsa Dillon, um, um, sorry, my mind, Jimmy Blanchette. So what I did was I had my friends each write a page and submit that to me. Sometimes they submitted an image that went along with it. Like, for instance, Dolly Safran, included her image of Mama, which is her contact. And also, the very first chapter, I talk about my experiences with Bob the Gray and also with other ETs. So, only the first 2 chapters have writing and experiences. And then the rest of the book, there's over 250 images of beings that we could loosely call the Greys. Now, this is not exactly what they look like. I didn't take pictures of them. They're AI generated, but I was really surprised that AI created what I wanted for me. Like, I was really surprised. It was outside of the scope of what that program really could do. So I was very, very surprised. And this book is not for those of you, well, anyone can buy it, but it's not really meant for those of you who are familiar with the whole ET thing and experiences with Greys and all that kind of stuff. This book is meant for people who right now are outside their comfort zone with the whole disclosure. Now, I had no idea that there would be disclosure, but my guides did tell me that 2026, 2027, somewhere in here, that the powers that be would be releasing information about the Greys. And of course, people's knee-jerk reaction is to be afraid. And when you're afraid, you lose your critical thinking skills. And when you're afraid, you stop being grounded. And so basically, this book is for people who are new to the subject, especially regarding the Greys, so that they can get familiar with what the Greys might actually look like, the males, the females, the children. And so it's a picture book, and it's called Transdimensional 2 Meet the Greys Picture Book. So if you're looking for a whole book full of script, that's not what this is. This is images that I created with AI. And they're meant for people to be able to read from these true accounts from my friends, from me, but also to look at the images to lose that fear. They need to get past that fear and get used to looking at beings that don't look just like us, so that when the time comes and they're being introduced to humanity, people aren't going to be running and hiding in their closets. And if we can maintain our critical thinking skills, and if we can stay grounded and just go, oh, yeah, I know what those look like. That's very similar to what I saw in Karen's book. They're going to be able to react much better and not be controlled by the control systems that are going to want us to be afraid, because then we're easier to control. I know I use control too many times in one sentence, but you know what I'm trying to say. So they're very, very different books. And so the first one is about my experiences, almost all script, but I do have some images. I've got my guide. I've got in the different different aspects of what I experienced. But then I also finish up the book with quite a few images that are, again, AI generated, but very close to what the beings I interacted with look like so that you can get a bit of an idea. It's nice to get the gist. So they're two completely different books. But for people that are having a little trouble, with the disclosure and are afraid, it would be the second book would be ideal for them so that they can get familiar and just stop being afraid and just kind of come into acceptance that this is a new reality. So that's my second book. So yeah, first and second book. So
Well, thank you for that. And I love the synchronicity because you're writing to dispel fear. I'm writing books to dispel fear as well. And one of the friends that we have in the chat room said, I've been wondering for a while if we were led to this information to help destroy our fear, to help with encounters. And so it's like, it seems to be coming into our faces of, yes, we are doing this to dispel the fear and it's getting noticed. And so that's what I love when, we get small little validations of that, of, we're not looking for approval or anything, or, the justification, but it's nice that what we're trying to do is getting seen and getting understood. And so there's a little bit of, heartfeltness to that. And so thank you, Dan, for sharing that, observation, because I think Karen and I can speak for you that that is our one of our main goals. And so that it's being seen is the beautifulness of what's going on.
mhm. Exactly. We're all in this together, guys. So let's get grounded, keep our critical thinking skills. As I said in the beginning, I don't expect anyone to believe me. I know my story is pretty outrageous, and I know my experiences are very unusual, and that's okay. You don't have to believe me. That's not what I'm going for, but it would be lovely if you all were able to read the book. I know some of you already have, just to get an orientation, or to maybe to reconfirm what you already know about what we need to do to fix things here on Earth. And Michael, I'd love to come back and talk a bit about the big ship and how we move it from point A to point B, which actually is point B. Point A becomes point B. How we eat, how we socialize. Like there's the culture of some of these different beings, some of the peculiarities are differences in the way they look, all that kind of stuff. I would love to come back and talk more about it when it's a good time for you. But sorry, I don't mean to be bossy. I'm all wedging my way in here.
No,
But
I'm loving how we're in sync, because I was just, I was going to wrap it up by saying, we have just hit the tip of the iceberg of what you have to offer. And I would love to have you back on to go deeper into more of these experiences. And so I'm loving how both of us are in sync and both like, yes, we're wanting to do this. So I feel that, that'll definitely happen. And I normally, I will be honest, is when I bring a guest back on, it's usually like a month between their first
yeah,
appearance and next appearance, so people have a chance to get caught up with the first episode appearance. Because I feel like if I do it too soon, then
no,
people are
no,
gonna be like, "There's no
actually,
reason to watch the first one," and so it's like, no, you really need to watch the first one.
Well, most people have me back um, when they have me back. What they usually do. It's about 3 months between, because that also gives the audience a chance to get the book and read it and process it as well. And then we get some awesome questions, from the live chat as well. So no
Yes.
pressure whatsoever. It's been a delight to be here. I've loved the comments from everybody. Thank you for everybody who regularly comes to my channel, who is here also today. Thank you to your guests in the live chat. You guys have been absolutely gracious and lovely. Thank you so much.
Yes. And so, one last thing before I let you go, and well,
Okay.
actually, two things. First is I want to acknowledge, and this is something you and I talked about before the show started, and I just want to acknowledge for everyone. Karen was woke up not feeling well and wanted to do this show so much so that she didn't tell me till it was like a minute to start time almost. And so thank you for, doing this and, sharing your experiences and, doing this while you're not feeling well. I totally told her we could have postponed, and she was like, no, we're going to do it. So thank you for, you know, getting through it with us. And I just want to say I appreciate that. And, thank you so much. And my second is I like to leave my guests with this message, and that is from my heart and the heart of my shows to you. Thank you for what you're doing for humanity. It's seen, felt, heard, and in your case, so appreciated. So thank you.
You're very welcome. And thank you, everybody. I mean, this is a group effort. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Michael, for having me on your show. Really appreciate it. I'm so glad we did this.
Yes, and hopefully next time when we have you back on, you'll be at 100%. And with that being said, make sure you follow Karen Holton TV for great information and follow my channels because that's how you'll know when she's coming back on is it'll be announced on these channels. And so thank you everyone for watching. And with that, we're going to say good night and good afternoon depending where you are. So, and thank you, Jason. And I appreciate that. She is a great host. And so I take the compliment as well. And with that, I'm going to switch to the outro and I will sign us out. Have a wonderful week, everyone. And wow, I'm like, I don't want to miss any of these compliments and these loving thoughts that are coming in. And so it's like I keep bouncing back. But thank you, everyone. And thank you to Karen. And we will be back. And there will be another episode. So stay tuned, everyone. Bye bye.